The Monster Hunter franchise. A franchise we have come to love over a decade and love even more now with the addition of Monster Hunter World. Capcom, or more specifically, the Monster Hunter team, have always come through with improvements to their games, whether it's a new game or expansion of a base game. However, there are things I believe they should still do for the franchise in the future, whether it's for Iceborne or any future titles. I am ReaverJolt, and this is the top 5 things Capcom should do for Monster Hunter. Now before we get started, this list is of course for my own opinion. Also, I'm primarily a PC player and can't access Iceborne until January, so please no spoilers in the comments. I'll be saying this at the beginning of every video until the PC version of Iceborne comes out. It's also apparent that people don't know I have a Twitter account. On my Twitter page, I keep you guys updated on my latest videos before I post them, and I also put polls for what video ideas I have that you'd like to see. You can check out my Twitter in the description below. With that out of the way, let's get to the list. In at number 5, they should have more variety in monster skeletons. Now what I mean by this isn't that we need new skeletons of monsters. What I mean is there are skeletons that need to be expanded upon. Like the snake wyvern skeleton for example. The only snake wyverns we have right now are Najarala and Tidal Najarala, both of which we may not see again, especially the subspecies. Another example is the Tennocerans. Literally, the only 2 monsters in this skeleton category are Nursilla and the subspecies Shrouded Nursilla. You see what I mean now? The fact that Capcom has left these skeletons in the dust is silly. All that would need to be done to expand on these skeletons is by making new monsters that utilize them. They did that for the Flying Wyverns, they did that for the Brute Wyverns, and they more recently did that with the Fanged Wyverns. If they can do that for all those monster skeletons, I definitely think they should do it for these ones as well. In at number 4, they should have a Nintendo Switch exclusive Monster Hunter game. Now I'm not talking about Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate, that game was ported from the 3DS. I'm talking about a tried and true Monster Hunter game that would be made for the Switch respectively. I have covered this topic before on my channel, so check the videos out in the iCard above. Earlier this year, there was a rumor that we would get information in March confirming that there's a Monster Hunter Switch game in the works. We didn't get any info in March at all, and the rumors for a Switch title haven't been touched on since. I would imagine veterans of the series were disappointed. The main reason fans want a Switch exclusive game is because Monster Hunter World will not be coming to the Nintendo Switch. There was a Kotaku article a while back that talked about an interview with Capcom president Haruhiro Sugimoto. Forgive me if I butchered that name. He was asked about the request at hand. According to this article, here's how it went. However, taking into account various conditions, bringing Monster Hunter World now for release is difficult. The reason is that the Switch has different functions from the other stationary consoles as well as different players. Each game console has its own characteristic, and it's necessary that we as game makers adapt to that when making a game. From now on, we are looking at how we can support the Switch with our games, and that also includes Monster Hunter. So basically what this means is they are unable to port Monster Hunter World to the Nintendo Switch and that they are indeed looking into making a different Monster Hunter game for it. Now keep in mind, this article was posted a month after Monster Hunter World's release on console. Now even though this is the case, I tend to think that there is indeed a Monster Hunter game in the works for the Nintendo Switch. Although we still need to take this with a pinch of salt. Even if they are making a Switch game, they're not exactly going to reveal anything to us until possibly later next year. The earliest would probably be at E3, but we'll see. In at number 3, Capcom should properly balance weapons. In the past, it didn't necessarily matter what weapon type you chose. You would try all the weapons to see which one suits your playstyle. Nowadays, weapons are unbalanced, especially in Monster Hunter World. I think this wasn't necessarily what Capcom was intending, but it's that way. The main reason this happened was because certain weapons in Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate were deemed too overpowered. I'm referring more specifically to the Charge Blade and Insect Glaive. Out of the two, the Insect Glaive was the one that got the most nerfs in Monster Hunter World. I'm no glaive expert, but I think it's because back then, you could abuse the mounting mechanic with that particular weapon. Now what about the Charge Blade? Ah yes, my most favorite weapon in Monster Hunter. This weapon was considered overpowered in 4 Ultimate. You could guard point into super amped elemental discharges with this weapon. It was later rebalanced in Generations. However, in Monster Hunter World, not only did they bring back the charge blade to its former glory, but they made it so your shield's charge doesn't go away after a super amped elemental discharge. Okay, I may be a charge blade main, but this is OP. Why did they make the Insect Glaive's damage output only good when grounded? That weapon is designed for aerial combat! Why nerf the Insect Glaive and not the charge blade? That doesn't make any sense. Why make a weapon that's designed for the air when it's only good on the ground? You either nerf both or nerf none, not just one. Hey, that rhymed. There are also weapon types that are in fact better than others. For example, Longsword is the most popular weapon amongst fans because it has a move that basically makes you invulnerable for a short time, and that's the Foresight Slash. Forget about the True Charge Slash being overpowered. The Greatsword's True Charge Slash takes time to master, so the move is definitely okay in my opinion. But the Foresight Slash takes almost no effort to pull off. And then there are those weapons that almost no one uses, like the Hunting Horns, Swords and Shields, Lances, etc. That's because those weapons don't do the highest damage. These examples I mentioned are things I think Capcom should look into balancing in the future. Also, let me know if any of this is done in Iceborne. Just make sure it's spoiler free. In at number 2, Capcom should keep their reveals to a minimum. Now, what do I mean by this? Capcom has shown a lot of their trailers recently with Iceborne. They revealed a lot in their trailers to get fans hyped. However, by doing so, that spoiled the game and killed the surprise factor for a lot of people, myself included. The biggest example of this is Acidic Glavenus, a subspecies revealed not long ago after the reveal for Glavenus. In the past, Capcom never did much reveals for previous games, which made the surprise fun. Now, I'm not saying they shouldn't create hype for new games. I'm saying that revealing too much of the game kills the surprise factor for people. So if I were Capcom, I'd only make reveals once every 2 months at the very least before launch. This is something I think they should do so everybody gets to be surprised instead of just those who wind up having to avoid spoilers altogether. And in at number 1, Capcom should have remakes. I'm really not sure why there aren't remakes for any of the Monster Hunter games. But since we have so many returning monsters in Iceborne, there should definitely be remakes in my opinion. Capcom usually uses monsters from past games because of nostalgia. So why not play with our nostalgia more by incorporating remakes? The expansions don't count as remakes because they add to a game even if it's in the form of a separate title. For example, if they were to remake the first ever Monster Hunter game, they would have updated graphics, mechanics, weapons, etc. That game didn't have a lot of monsters, so adding more monsters for more variety would be cool. It would also have low rank, high rank, and master rank. In short, they would expand a lot more on a remake as opposed to just bringing back the original game as a remastered edition. Although if I were to make a remake of a game, it would definitely be the game that got me started in Monster Hunter, Monster Hunter Tri. Although I'd choose 3 Ultimate because I'd want the extra content. I'd make the graphics equal to that of Monster Hunter World, overhaul the underwater mechanics, update the weapon roster, as well as add more monsters. If they remade any of the previous games, I'm sure fans would go crazy. Thank you very much for watching. If you'd like to see more like this, consider liking the video, and consider subscribing and turning on the bell to keep up with my uploads. Be kind to one another, and have a most wonderful day.